everyone. I'm Anita Huberman. I'm Executive Director of BC Common Ground Alliance, and I'm here on behalf of Icons Media and Magazine Group, where we are focused on creating wealth through real estate. I'm so pleased to have with me today the CEO of the BC Real Estate Association, Mr. Trevor Koot. Trevor, please introduce yourself.
Thanks for having me, Anita. I'm Trevor Koot. I am the CEO of the BC Real Estate Association, an organization that represents and supports nearly 26,000 realtors in the province of British Columbia. We focus on advocating around housing issues and regulatory environment and supporting the realtors in the province of British Columbia in their efforts to represent their clients in their best interests.
Tell me a little bit about your perspective on the real estate industry today. And this morning, it's May 29th today, they forecasted a technical recession, whatever that means.
Yeah.
But what are the opportunities from your perspective in today's real estate industry?
We're definitely seeing an environment in British Columbia, and I don't think it would be a surprise to anyone related to more of the market environment, real estate market, where we're seeing quiet sales in throughout BC. Some areas, obviously, it's jurisdictional, it's regional. Some areas affected more than others, and some housing types affected more than others. But the bigger concern for us is the state of the environment around supply. We're definitely seeing a quiet environment around demand. The quiet environment around supply is a longer term marker of potential inflation again in the home buying environment, and certainly brings a question mark into the affordability conversation. And so we've got this kind of perfect storm where we've got buyers sitting on the sidelines because of all of the broader geopolitical and economic concerns. But that is also stalling the development side, and we're seeing a quiet environment around that. Where we need to see more action is providing incentivizing shovels in the ground, getting construction underway today so that we don't put ourselves in an unaffordability crisis in 5-10 years from now. But we also need to see some stability in uncertainty and see people, the average buyer consumer, have a little more confidence in the system in order to come off the sidelines and start purchasing in the environment today.
When we're talking about the BC Real Estate Association, are we talking about residential? Are we talking about commercial? Are we talking about not-for-profit rentals? Tell us a little bit about your association.
The association represents the nearly 26,000 realtors in the province of British Columbia. So the majority of our constituents, our stakeholders, are working within the residential real estate environment, transactional real estate environment, market real estate. The vision of the organization is connecting communities, enriching lives. So we don't look at housing only through the eyes and the perspective of what's in the best interest of realtors. We look at real estate and the real estate environment through the eyes of what is in the best interest of British Columbians. What are the opportunities? There's a lot of challenges. There's no question. I mean, anybody that is looking from the outside, and I will say they're not unique to British Columbia either. The challenges that we're experiencing, whether it's healthcare, opioid epidemic, shelter housing, supportive housing, market housing, the broader economic environment, all of these things are challenges that we're all dealing with. And as an organization representing such a wide swath of people, and not just the 26,000 constituents that we have, but all of their clients and customers who are everyday buyers and sellers of their homes in British Columbia, that's a big responsibility. And so we look at it through a very broad lens.
What is your message to the BC government when we're talking about all of these taxes and the layers of administrative burden when you're purchasing real estate? What are 2 or 3 things that you can recommend to government to make it easier to ensure that everyone has a right to housing?
I've been going through this thought exercise recently around this idea that trying to pose the question and develop an answer to the question of, are we asking housing to solve too many of our problems? So we look at housing and we create climate, environmental and climate policy around housing. We've got housing certainly from a taxation perspective, trying to solve a multiple elements and challenges out there from a government perspective. We look to housing to start to provide the pursuit of financial opportunity for people. We look to housing now to answer the reconciliatory question related to Aboriginal title. And we're putting this burden on housing to try and help us through all of these other issues, movement of people, foreign buyers, all of these different elements. And as we do that, there's this stacking environment of regulation and policy that is becoming burdensome and moving away from what we used to believe to be home ownership in Canada. The agency the autonomy that people used to have around home ownership is starting to get whittled away. You own your home, but you can't rent it on a short-term basis, and you own your home, but you can't sell it to a foreign buyer, and you own your home, but you can't do all of these things with your property. And I think that's changing the dialogue. It's changing the relationship that people have with the expectations of government and policy. And really, at this point, this stacking, this compounding effect, I think needs to be looked at. There's opportunity for government to start to mimic what other jurisdictions are doing. We're going to start seeing a flight of capital. We're going to start seeing capital move away from British Columbia because opportunities are better. Announcements out of the Ontario government and the relationship they built with the feds on GST rebate and some allocation of money towards the development cost charges to reduce the cost for developers to get shovels in the ground. We need to start doing some of that stuff here, but we need to do it in this kind of stacking, this compounding environment of policy using that perspective. The other piece that I'll say is we can't expect this government, we can't expect any government, but I think especially this government to all of a sudden make sweeping changes and drastic changes under an environment where they have fiscal constraints and they're resource constrained as well. I think the idea is to make incremental policy changes that, again, in a positive way, remove this compounding and get us to a place where in 10 years we don't have an unaffordability crisis again, as we saw after the Great Recession in 2008.
Do you think within British Columbia is investing in Metro Vancouver a better option or in other parts of BC? What's your perspective on that?
I think the idea of investing in real estate is, in general, something that is up to the individual investor. I mean, when you talk about regionalization like that, there's going to be exposure to different risk elements, and people have different risk appetites in order to do that. There's obviously different, financial opportunities and financial outlay that's going to be required in those investing environments. I think when we talk about housing, we need to talk about it in the context of financial opportunity and financial stability that it brings to people. Housing, at the end of the day, is still a roof over your head that's providing shelter and safety for you to raise a family, to be part of your community, to make a living, and to create a pathway to financial stability. And I think if we're talking about housing in that respect, then there's a lot of other checkboxes that people need to look at when they decide on geographically where am I going to purchase. If it is strictly from an investment perspective, a financial vehicle, then there's these other elements of risk tolerance and return on investment and those types of things that somebody would consider.
Okay. My final question to you is the next generation of homeowners. And the younger generation, they seem to feel, and they are being locked out of homeownership. And I'm from Surrey, and a third of our population is under the age of 19, and they're worried about what their future holds. If they're in college or university, how am I supposed to afford a home?
Yeah.
What is your message to younger people today to have hope around having a home, investing in real estate?
Yeah. I think the realities of all of this have changed. And it goes back to what I was saying about even those who are in home ownership today. The idea, the meaning, the definitions of home ownership have evolved, and it's really kind of changed based on this broader environment that we're in. I think that the path to home ownership is still there, and I think that people can be confident that it's still there. It just is a very different path than it was 10 years ago, and certainly 20 years ago, and for my parents' generation when they bought our family home in 1984. It doesn't provide any solace for people to say that that path is difficult and getting more difficult, certainly. But I think if people can continue to have confidence that home ownership is an opportunity for financial stability and financial management for them and their families, they can look to the future around the possibility of having that home ownership play a role in their financial future. It gives them a little bit more, maybe a little bit more runway to say, okay, I can stay on that path, even though it's going to take a little bit longer and it might be a little bit more difficult to get there. The reality is it's still attainable. It's just probably taking longer for people to get there. And hopefully for some, and certainly, I'm obviously talking from a place of privilege when I say stuff like this, but some people have opportunity from Bank of Mom and Dad and other resources that are in front of them, but a lot of people don't. And I think it's just staying on that pursuit because there's the idea of financial stability through home ownership is something that I think we as Canadians can still have confidence in based on the systems that we have. And I think that's an important piece of the puzzle.
I think your key message really here in this podcast is that it takes an ecosystem of different ingredients in the overall recipe of real estate investment, and really galvanizing the different opportunities that may exist in a very uncertain economic environment. And ladies and gentlemen, we have here with us the CEO of the BC Real Estate Association, Mr. Trevor Koot, and really talking about that different ecosystem that we can survive but also thrive in. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.